It's time for our review. Yay! So this is a review for Hannibal Series 3, Episode 8, The Great Red Dragon. Written by Nick Anocsa, Steve Lightfoot and Bryan Fuller, and directed by Neil Marshall. Hannicat retweeted me! I love Hannicat. So this episode takes place 3 years after the events of Episode 7. So let's get one thing out of the way before we begin. Richard Armitage is smoking hot. He is. He's gorgeous. And the very first scene that we meet him in, he is practically naked, he's just wearing tiny little booty shorts, and he's doing yoga. But then he starts to move, and I don't know how he does it, but he makes his body terrifying. And this is a guy with a very, very, very good body. He has. But somehow he makes his muscles look like they're alive, like they're controlling him. He does this thing where it's such a physical performance and it's so controlled and it's just... And as a result of that, I found him quite repulsive to look at in this episode. The minute he's on screen I just go, oh no, it's this visceral dislike. And that's so amazing because I've seen Richard Armitage in other things and I really like him as an actor. So to have someone so handsome and so able to be, charming and stuff and other things, to then just transform themselves and not with makeup or anything, just with physicality, suddenly become this really unnerving, animalistic, disturbing creature. Oh, he's so talented. He's so good. But yeah, Francis Dolarhyde. Definitely not sexy. Not sexy. Horrifying. Not sexy. I call him Francis Dolarhyde. His name isn't actually revealed in this episode. I only know it from watching Comic-Con panels and interviews with Bryan Fuller and the rest of the cast. But I don't know if I've said this before, but I actually have no prior knowledge of anything Hannibal related. I've never read any of the books or seen any of the films, any of them. So my only experience in this canon is Bryan Fuller's version of it and the TV show's version. So I have no idea where this storyline is going. I don't know who Francis Dolarhyde is or what he's been through or why he's so intensely creepy and horrifying. I literally only know his name from seeing Comic-Con interviews. So if I sound really ignorant about character stuff or anything, it's only because I am. So the sort of fractured evolution of Dolarhyde is intercut all throughout this episode, and I just found it really, really disturbing, really frightening. Not in a bad way. It was done really, really well, shot beautifully, acted amazingly. And I actually found it kind of exciting because the show generally doesn't really frighten me. It occasionally grosses me out a little bit. And there are certainly moments where I'm frightened for the characters. But I've never actually found anything in it properly horrifying. But I do find Dolarhyde really viscerally disgusting. I don't want to look at him. He's just, it's a visceral dislike. So that's actually really interesting. I'm really excited to see the rest of the season and see if that carries through and if I continue to be frightened by him. So the first scene we get after the credits is Hannibal in his mind palace in Florence, listening to a choir, and it's very beautiful. And he's trying really hard to focus on that and the beauty and the peace of that place and not remember all the bits about his trial and his arrest and all that, but that is sort of pushing in on him and that's intercut with that. And when he's speaking to Alana, in his mind they're in his old office as opposed to his cell. We learn that Alana has become the director of the institute, so should she be giving him wine? Are you allowed to give patients of yours alcohol? I don't know if that's a thing. So Hannibal and Alana are talking about how he managed to beat the death penalty by pleading insanity. Now, Hannibal isn't insane. I mean, clearly there's something deeply wrong with him, but he's not insane. He knows that, Alana knows that. He's not diagnosable. But as it transpires, Alana and Chilton both lied and said he was insane so he could avoid the lethal injection. Alana helped him so he would continue to take the blame for Mason's murder. And Chilton helped him just so he could get a book deal and some notoriety, because that's who Chilton is, and we love him for that. There is something wonderful about seeing Hannibal locked up, because he has no reason to hide anything anymore, and he has no fucks left to give, essentially. So he's just an out and proud cannibal. He's just casually chatting away about, like, putting people in Alana's beer. Alana says, "Enough people have died." And Hannibal replies with, "You haven't." And I know there's a whole thing, Hannibal keeps his promises and he's promised to kill Alana, and that must be where the show's going, and I know that and I can see all the foreshadowing, but I intensely do not want it to go there. Do not have him kill Alana. What? No. No. No, 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 no. If that's how this season ends, because this may very well be our last ever season, and if it ends with dead Alana, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy at all. The dessert that Chilton brings Hannibal looks amazing. When you're seeing it being made, it just looks so delicious, and it's served in orange. You're like, oh, chocolatey, orangey goodness, hooray! And then you find out there's blood in it, and you're like, what? Why would you? Why? And that's a real thing? That's a real dessert you make with blood and chocolate? Why would you put the chocolate, or why would you put the blood in it? Why? Why? I really want to try it now, but I'm a vegetarian, and I don't like the idea of eating blood, but that dessert looks so good, and conflicted now. But again, there's this brilliant moment where Chilton and Hannibal are eating their dessert, and Hannibal has previously made that dessert for dear old Frederick, and he's like, "Whose blood did you use when you were making mine?" He's like, "Oh, it was from a cow, only in the derogatory sense." And there's this cheerful little smile on his face, and he's just digging into his dessert, and Chilton's just sitting across going, and just grossed out, and Hannibal's like cheerily, "Ah, it's so good." Mads Mikkelsen is just amazing in this episode, because you can see Hannibal has gone just a tiny bit stir crazy. Like, he's able to escape into his mind palace whenever he needs to, but he is cut off from the world, and he's cut off from people. It seems like the only people that Hannibal gets to see anymore are Alana and Chilton, so he really relishes those interactions, and he really just messes with them because it's the only kind of entertainment he has. But I love that Chilton's able to just dig right back in, and he's just straight up like, "No, my next book isn't about you, it's about the Tooth Fairy, because he's so much more popular than you." And you can really see that that pisses Hannibal off, because he's such a vain character. He's proper annoyed that he's not popular anymore. He has a much wider demographic than you. You'll always have a niche appeal, which is just really feels like a Bryan Fuller line, and given where we are now, like, yeah, I think if the show was about the Red Dragon as opposed to Hannibal, it would probably get more viewers. It probably would, because it would be more brutal and sensationalized, whereas everything Hannibal does is so beautiful and artistic. It would be a completely different show, and we wouldn't love it as much, but it would probably get more viewers, which is really fucking sad. So we see Will by a lake with his dogs, and he looks happy and healthy and just well, and I'm just sitting there going, oh, look at him with his dogs and doing his thing, he looks so happy. And then a car pulls up, Jack gets out, and I am just screaming, "No! Fuck off, Jack! Leave him alone! Can't you see that he is happy? Don't make him go and think about serial killers again! Leave the poor boy alone! Why won't anyone leave Will alone? Let him live in the woods! with his nice woman and her child, and they fish and they rescue dogs. They rescue dogs together! But why should cold stop what common sense couldn't? And yes, I get there's been very serious murders, and Will is of course the best person to put on the case because obviously he will solve it because he's incredibly talented at that. But it's not good for him. I just want Will to have things that are good for him and to be taken care of. And Molly does seem to be taking good care of him. I like her at this point actually. Like, we haven't got much character stuff about her. We really only know what she's like in regards to Will. But I mean, she rescues stray dogs. She rescues stray dogs and she goes fishing with her son and she loves Will. She genuinely loves Will and is taking good care of him and giving him a family and a home. So, you know, what's not to like? Well, actually, I don't really like that she pushed him into joining the case. Like, I know he has to join the case and it's for the greater good and all that, but he's so clearly uncomfortable about the idea of doing it that it really kind of irked me when she was like, no, you should go do it. Like, no, just tell him to stay home. Why won't anyone just tell him to stay home? He should stay home. So after that conversation with Molly, Will gets up in the middle of the night and he takes something from a dresser drawer. He goes downstairs to sit by the fire and read this letter, which is from Hannibal. Firstly, how long do you think he's had that letter hidden away, trying to convince himself to either like destroy it or just not look at it? And then finally his willpower just kind of wanes and he's just like, no, I need to find out what he said. And I actually think, given that Molly is pushing him to go and join the case, he's sort of hoping that Hannibal will be telling him to do the opposite, which he is, but he's also sending him the newspaper article about the murders. So clearly it's this reverse psychology thing where he's like, oh no, Will, you should look after yourself and stay away. Please come and see me. Please come and see me. I miss you. No, stay away. Stay away. Like, it's clearly that manipulative kind of, oh, I'm telling you to go away, but really I want you to come over here kind of thing. What I want to know though is this the first letter that Hannibal has sent him? Because I can't believe that it is. In 3 years, has Hannibal really only written one letter? I don't think so. I hope we find that out next episode. But, I mean, it's been 3 years. I can't imagine that Hannibal has been able to restrain himself for that long before contacting Will. So then, of course, we see Will breaking into the crime scene. And in a small way, it is kind of nice to see Will back in a crime scene, because that's sort of back to normal for him. But mostly I just really want him to go home. Especially the more he looks around the place. Because Chilton was quite right. There is none of the finesse that Hannibal had in these murders. They're brutal, and they're like animal attacks. And there's that super uncomfortable kind of sexual element to it. Bryan Fuller, as a rule, won't write rape stories, because especially in a show like this, it would be very hard to do without it being like sensationalized or something, so I really appreciate that. Especially given the whole debacle with Game of Thrones recently, it's just really nice to have a showrunner that's like, no, we're not gonna use this horrific, awful thing that is done to people to like get more ratings. We're not going to do that. However, from what I understand, that is a very large part of the story in the novel. Again, I haven't read it, but I have been told that Francis Dolarhyde does rape the mothers of these families before he kills them. So like, that's a large part of his character, and it is vaguely alluded to later on. But even if it wasn't, even if that line wasn't there, I think you would still get that sense there would be this underlying tone of sexual violence, which is part of the reason why he's so frightening. And you can see Will really being affected by that in the crime scene, just looking around. And it's sort of overwhelming for him, but he still has to go into his empathy thing. And I really don't want him to, and he really doesn't want to, but it needs to be done, so he does it. But it's really, really unsettling to see Will go into the mindset of Dolarhyde and to see him shoot those kids and shoot the parents and loom over that woman's body and like need to touch her. Just it's unsettling to watch, but it's also really upsetting from a character point of view, because you know how damaging this is for Will to have to do this. So luckily after that we get a little bit of comic relief. The team's back, the team minus Beverly, obviously. I still miss Beverly Katz. Can she not just come back? Can it just... That was a joke. She didn't really get sliced up. She's just back now, it's fine. She died, but she got better, so she's just back. Can we please staple her back together? She'll be fine. There was a fingerprint on the eyeball! I would never think to look at someone's eyeball for a fingerprint. That was really clever. I'm assuming that the teeth marks they found are from the dentures we saw Dolarhyde get earlier, so they're not going to be able to trace him with those. And I'm assuming those are also the same dentures that Dolarhyde hallucinates as chattering in their jar. I don't know, I'm so confused by him. I did not like seeing Will drinking alone in his motel room. That was super upsetting. I don't... No! And he's lying down on his bed and then he's hallucinating again, but then he goes to Jack asking about the family's dog. Because of course he does, because he's Will. Can Will just be given the dog, please? He's gonna steal that dog, isn't he? I bet you anything he is gonna go down to the vet's and he is gonna steal that dog and keep it as his own. But the dog is not the only reason that Will has gone to see Jack. And I like that he doesn't beat around the bush. He just comes straight out and says it. He is going to go and see Hannibal at some point. It's inevitable. He will need to see him for the case, and he will also be drawn there. The longer he is near where Hannibal is, the more inevitable it becomes that he will go and see him. Hannibal is in his mind palace in Florence, and Will comes up behind him. Hannibal turns around, and Will says, "Hello, Dr. Lecter." Hannibal says, "Hello, Will." And that's the end of the episode. And Will has reverted to the formal Dr. Lecter to try and put some distance between them. But Hannibal doesn't want distance between them. He doesn't want formality. He wants them to be back where they were, which is why he replies with "Hello, Will." This is the second reunion scene we've gotten in this season. And God, there's gonna be they're gonna talk next week, and there's gonna be feelings and While we're on the subject, I just wanted to say a little thing about Hannigram and how I feel about it. I love this show, and a big reason why I do is because I love the relationship between Will and Hannibal. I think it's fascinating. These characters canonically love each other and don't want to love each other, and I find that dynamic really interesting to watch, especially the way it's played by Hugh and Mads. It's just, there's so many layers and different elements, and I find it so satisfying to watch. But I'm under no illusions about their relationship. The relationship between Will and Hannibal is incredibly toxic and manipulative and abusive. Hannibal has done horrific things to Will, and he's done them over and over and over again. And for his part, Will has tried to kill Hannibal on multiple occasions. None of this is the basis for a romantic relationship, and I'm under no illusions that they're gonna run off into the sunset together and everything's gonna be fine. However, I do think that there's a small part of both of those characters that want to. They do want to run off into the sunset together. That's not what I want. I want Will to be happy and safe and loved, and I want Hannibal to be dead, basically. I want him to be dead and probably eaten, just because that would be poetic justice. But I don't think either of those things are gonna happen. I'm not gonna get what I want. Will and Hannibal aren't gonna get what they want either. Will's not gonna kill Hannibal because he can't. Hannibal's not gonna kill Will because he can't. They're not gonna be together because they can't. So whatever way this ends, nobody's gonna be happy. But I am so okay with that because I love the angst in this show. I love the drama and the melodrama, and I am going to enjoy every second of Hannibal and Will's interactions until the end of the season. Because they have amazing chemistry, they're incredible characters played by incredible actors, and they are in love. But that's not a good thing for either of them, which is what makes it so interesting to watch. So that's pretty much it for this episode. I do have one question actually before I go. Can Francis Dolarhyde not talk? Can he talk? What's up with his mouth? Can he speak and he was just practicing making dragon sounds? Or are those the only sounds that he can make? I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out later on, but I don't know. Alright, if you liked this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for next week's episode. All the links to Postmortem and to any promos or anything will be below, as well as my personal links, just like always. Tell me in the comments if you're as excited and scared for the Red Dragon storyline as I am, and I will see you guys next week.